In other words, was he already on the street?
Because
he came from the gray vehicle. The protocol Julie is talking about, she's correct, of course. And we all use that same protocol in law enforcement, but that's a traffic stop protocol. So when you pull a car over and you're approaching, you're coming in at that 90. You'll see troopers and officers even come in from the passenger side, which even gives you more level of safety, not only from traffic, but from the driver trying to assault you. So that's a traffic stop protocol. Here you have agents on a city street. They could be on the sidewalk when something happens. He could be out of that gray car and already in the front of the vehicle when something happens. We don't really know his position because we don't see him until the very last minute. You don't see him here until the vehicle backs up, and then he appears. So it looks like he was already there. He didn't appear to come out of the gray pickup truck, which is the ICE pickup truck to the left. You can see there that has flashing blue and red lights in the grill. So maybe he was in another vehicle or he was on the sidewalk. So, yes, this is a different situation than a traffic stop. Julia's right. You never want to put yourself in front of a vehicle if you think there's going to be some danger. The other side is maybe they didn't realize there was danger there. They were just going to ask the person to move or back up, or we're law enforcement officers, you can't go this way, or please back over here. You know, not every situation immediately is fraught with danger, and you have to deal with people. So that could be what happened here. I don't think we can assume from some of the statements of politicians that, you know, this was terrorism or she was evil or she was trying to run over the ICE officer. The video doesn't show all these things. What the video shows is a truck going toward the ICE officer. Yep. Even if she's trying to escape, he still can save himself, regardless of her motive. It doesn't have to be terrorism for him to fire. It doesn't have to be anything other than, I don't want to be run over by a vehicle, and I'm in a position where it could happen to me.
But can I stop you there, Jim, though?
Even if she was trying to leave.
But, I mean, I guess I'm not a member of law enforcement. I haven't been trained in this regard. But if your biggest concern in a situation like this, where you're standing in front of a vehicle and the vehicle is starting to move, wouldn't your first inclination, just as a human being responding, would be just to get out of the way? Well, I guess I'm questioning the decision to pull the service weapon and fire as opposed to just jumping out of the way. Could that be a question of how this process was handled?
They don't move like that.
Well, I think it's going to be a question for the case, and I think it's a legitimate question. And people will argue, well, he could have jumped out of the way. Now, you will see that agent's feet slip on the icy road. So he's in a dicey situation. Not only does the wheel spin on the front of that SUV, and remember, the first thing that happens that we see is the vehicle starts to back up. It doesn't start to go forward. It starts to back up. And then it's put in drive, and the wheel spins on the ice, and he draws a duty weapon. Now, was it justified? We can't answer that. Yes. We need more video. We need the body camera video from the ICE agents, from the vehicle, doorbell cameras, statements of everybody to really determine what happened.
Yeah. All right, Julia, let's go back to you now. I understand the DHS plans to hold a press conference to provide some more information about what happened.
Yeah, that's right. That'll be at 5 p.m. local, so 6 p.m. Eastern, and it's with Secretary Kristi Noem. As you know, we saw her just earlier today on the border in Texas with the Border Patrol. That is when she made that claim that this woman was trying to use her vehicle to attack ICE officers as they attempted to dig their cars out of the snow. Now that this video has emerged and so many people have seen it, it'll be interesting to see if she sticks with that narrative. What we can expect, because we haven't seen any wiggle room on this from DHS or from Trump or anyone today, is that they do consider this to be an act of aggression. They've called it domestic terrorism, and we can expect for them to continue to blame the driver here and to support the officer saying that he was defending himself. But yes, that will be in just under 2 hours here.
That car, or not here, Julia. So I want you to start us off in the conversation around the training for these officers with things moving so quickly in a moment like this.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of training that ICE officers do, as well as any federal agents, in terms of when it comes to vehicles, which can be used as a weapon. That's why they are trained to be careful around them. One of the things is it's a practice to try to approach a vehicle from the side at a 90-degree angle, never head on. And I've spoken to DHS officials who are watching these videos and are talking to me, Hallie, because they're worried about what they've seen here, but they can't go on the record because they don't want to be conflicting with what Secretary Noem is putting out on the record, saying that this was clearly a vehicle ramming incident and that the officer was completely in the right. Now, they're not taking sides here. They're just trying to explain the training that goes into it because they want ICE officers to be protected when they go out in the field and conduct investigations. So the first thing they said is they would never approach a vehicle from the front. Now, I would want to see more of the video to see if that officer was already to the right of the vehicle and then needed to come around and he was on his way around. That's not exactly clear how he ended up there. The other thing is that they don't shoot at a moving vehicle as it means to stop it. That, of course, wouldn't be a way to stop a vehicle. It's continuing to move, even if the person behind the wheel is no longer in control of the vehicle. And so they said that wasn't something that could be done really in self-defense anyway, because it's not going to keep the vehicle from moving forward on the path where it's already going. Another thing here we have to mention is body cameras, because if you think back to every officer involved shooting that's been high profile that we've covered in recent years, even over the past decade and more, it's come down to body cameras. We always wait for that footage in order to see what the officer saw from his or her perspective when they made that decision to use lethal force. But unfortunately, it is not a policy across ICE for all officers to have body cameras. There was a pilot program that began under the Biden administration, and it was not expanded. And so to this day, only about 25% of ICE wears body cameras. Many of those belong to HSI. They do more of the investigative work, not this kind of work. And so even with the one big beautiful bill that made ICE the most well-funded law enforcement agency in the nation, they did not allocate any new money toward body cameras. And so, unfortunately, it's a very high possibility that we never see body camera footage from this incident. But certainly a lot of people talking today about training that is supposed to keep officers out of situations like this. They're not necessarily taking a side and saying that this officer should not have fired, but merely this was a position that could have been avoided.
Is that a
Julia, I'm going to ask you to stand by as long as you can. I know you got to work the phones too. On the left side of your screen, you are now looking at this vigil that has sprung up near the location of that deadly shooting today in Minneapolis. You hear people and you see them gather. They are singing together. Hours after this unfolded, just around midday. I mentioned Tom and Jim are joining us. Tom, as we keep an eye on what's happening here on the scene and this emotional moment for people, again, the identity of the woman who was killed still not officially known. We have shown you some of the angles from the scene. I want to pull that back up. And Tom, I'll start with you. What stands out to you when you look at this here? Because there's a lot of questions around, obviously, as we've been talking about how this unfolded.
Sure. So first off, the pickup truck there is clearly a law enforcement vehicle. You can see the flashing lights on it. It's got flashing lights in the grill.
And I'm going to ask our team, too, Tom, to pause. We have the ability to do that as you're talking through this here.
Yeah, so this is a great spot to pause. The first thing I looked at when I saw this video a second time is you look at the left front tire, which is clearly made a pivot here and is trying to get out of that. So this individual backs up their car. That left front tire is pointed to the left of our screen as we're looking at it. And this appears to be a one-way street, by the way, and then is seen kind of twisting the wheel and making that turn towards the right when the vehicle is then fired upon and that person who's now deceased is fired upon. So for the ICE agent, and what Julia pointed out was a really good point about the training. However, we don't know what led up to this. We can pause and stop and replay, and you're looking there at the vehicle with its tires turned to the left, as I described before. It's cumulatively about 5 seconds where this incident occurs, and it probably is actually less than that. So we don't know what led up to it. Was this vehicle creating a problem before in slowing down ICE officers? Was the fact this vehicle trying to turn around towards the direction of traffic, was that seen as a threat? Had there been issues before? What is said here? We don't hear a lot as far as whatever dialogue, if any, is said between the driver of this vehicle and the ICE agents. We don't know if they had a prior interaction with this person or if they knew who this person was. So there's a lot of questions here that'll become part of this investigation. everybody's going to want answers now. The video is very clear in front of us. We almost never get eyewitness video that holds this as well as this does. We've seen other videos as well that show the vehicle turning, that there is clearly an ICE agent in front of the vehicle. I'm going to read to you the controlling paragraph, page 7, item 2 of the Department of Homeland Security Use of Force Guide. It says a Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officer may use deadly force only when the law enforcement officer has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force, in this case the woman driving the car, poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to the law enforcement officer or to another person. So that's why it's going to be critical to understand, one, what was in the ICE agents, what was their state of mind leading up to this. Two, what was known about this car, this individual ahead of time. I mean, you see they stop there, they have their lights on, and they approach this car. Was there reason for it, or because of the protests, as has been stated, as you reported at the top of the show, were these guys on edge? Did they have previous interactions with people? Had they been stopping whatever enforcement operations they say they were carrying out? I'm up to, I don't know, how many, 20, 25 questions at this point. So that's why I think it's important to point out some of the still remaining parts of this investigation, Hallie.
Our team's gonna pull up another angle of this. This is the angle we showed you earlier, Jim. It's a different one. It's further away. It's further up the street, and you can see. And this is a different angle too. Again, all these images coming in, and I just want to explain to viewers for 1 second here. There's obviously a lot of video that comes in. We have a rigorous process here at NBC News where we have a team that is confirming that these videos are real, they are accurate, they are from the scene, et cetera. So everything you've seen on the internet, you might not see right here because, again, we have that process to go through. And Jim, as you look at this, you and I have talked before about this question of self-defense. And so as a law enforcement veteran, as an expert in this field here, can you help us understand how you're looking at some of these images?
Looking very close all day at these images and trying to ascertain, did the agent have a lawful right to use deadly force because he felt that his life was in imminent threat or he was in imminent threat of serious bodily injury. There's a couple of seminal points in this video. One is the one you showed right at the top, the very first video was a little longer in the beginning.
Let me have the team play that and pull that up. The longer video, I'm going to ask our controller to pull up the very first video that we aired in the show of this incident. It was longer. We showed some of the tee up there with that other car zooming past and driving away. So as Jim's talking through that, I'll get our team to pull that up here, please.
Yeah, we see this is the very early video that we hadn't seen earlier, and it looked like some more people, maybe that original ICE agent is in this video, either in front of the SUV already across the street. You see a person, probably an ICE agent, already there. And here you see an ICE agent, that may be him, walking around the vehicle. I think you could back it up right there, back it up a little bit. You see an ICE agent walk around between the two cars. I think that's the agent who fired the shot because he's nowhere else. So I think he comes from the right and he goes between the two SUVs. He walks between them. And then there's the two agents that get out of the silver pickup and they come over and they're confronting the driver. And that's when the ICE agent who fired the shot goes around. So I think
tell me why that's significant, the movement of these officers, Jim. What does it show?
Well, we talked extensively, and Julia, some great reporting today about, the positioning before the car. Right. We see him right there. He's between the car, and then the car starts to back up. You don't want to get between the cars either. You want to be smashed between them. So he walks around the front. And the other important thing to see here, it doesn't really play for either side of the equation, but it's an important fact, Hallie, is the car backs up, the SUV, the burgundy SUV backs up, then it's put in drive, and you'll see the front wheel, the drive wheel on this vehicle spins, the front wheel spins. And as soon as that front wheel spins, the same exact millisecond, you see the ICE agent draw his duty weapon at that same moment. He doesn't draw it when the car's in reverse. He draws it when the wheel spins. So I just think that's a good... if I was a commander here, I'd want to break that time down really close to see that. And then the third thing, just to close here.
That's what I'm talking about. The gray car. The gray car. What a great cop.
The very first video was a little longer in the beginning.
Let me have the team play that and pull that up. The longer video, I'm going to ask our control to pull up the very first video that we aired in the show of this incident. It was longer. We showed some of the tee up there with that other car zooming past and driving away. So as Jim's talking through that, I'll get our team to pull that up here, please.
Yeah, we see this is the very early video that we hadn't seen earlier, and it looked like some more people.
Because what he's saying,
maybe
gonna walk after the cop pull off.
Original ICE agent is in this video, either in front of the SUV.
See, this pulling off. So that might be ICE. Now that I think about it, this is the officer right here that ends up in the front. He's right here. He don't want to be recorded. She all up in his face. ICE, ooh, ICE. He like, get out the way. That's what happened. I don't know. I think that might be ICE. Or they might be fooling with them. But this is what happened.
Already across the street, you see a person, probably an ICE agent, already there. And here you see an ICE agent, that may be him, walking around the vehicle. I think you could back it up right there, back it up a little bit. You see an ICE agent walk around between the two cars. I think that's the agent who fired the shot because he's nowhere else. So I think he comes from the right and he goes between the two SUVs. He walks between them. And then there's the two agents that get out of the silver pickup, and they come over and they're confronting the driver, and that's when the ICE agent who fired the shot goes around. So
and tell me why that's significant, the movement of these officers, Jim. What does it show?
Well, we talked extensively, and Julia, some great reporting today about, the positioning before the car. We see him right there. He's between the car, and then the car starts to back up. You don't want to get between the cars either. You want to be smashed between them. So he walks around the front. And the other important thing to see here, it doesn't really play for either side of the equation, but it's an important fact, Hallie, is the car backs up, the SUV, the burgundy SUV backs up. Then it's put in drive, and you'll see the front wheel, the drive wheel on this vehicle spins. The front wheel spins.
Talking about the wheels.
And as soon as that front wheel spins, the same exact millisecond, you see the ICE agent draw his duty weapon at that same moment. He doesn't draw it when the car's in reverse. He draws it when the wheel spins. So I just think that's a good, if I was a commander here, I'd want to break that time down really close to see that. And then the third thing, just to close here, is the last video that you showed, the distant shot that you said the president released, kind of from a couple of
Well, I want to be clear. I don't know that he released it. It was part of his Truth Social post, Jim, just so folks know. It had come from, I believe, another outlet. But we can try to pull that up, and I'm going to tell my control room team this is the shot that's from the other perspective further up the road. Jim, as you talk here, we'll try to turn that around and re-rack that so people can see it as you're talking through it.
Yeah, we hadn't seen a shot like that, from the front, Hallie, so I think it's pretty significant. It's distant, but it could be frozen, zoomed in to give us what's a critical thing here, and that's the positioning of the ICE agent in front of the vehicle or to the side of the vehicle. In other words, what's his exact position? And, you'd want to, as a commander here, get that frozen right at the, the point of decision. And when I say the point of decision, I mean the point that he made the decision. Right.
That's right.
So right there, where is he? So that's a critical one right there. Those are three that I noticed, Hallie.
Jim, thank you. I want to pause for a second and ask our team to play a new, and this is that video Jim was talking about, a new piece of video that's come into us. This is after the shooting happened. And I want to ask our team to pull it up because it appears to show some of what was happening on the ground as we were talking about these calls for calm, et cetera. Here it is.
Can I go check a pole?
No, back up, now.
I'm a physician.
Hey, listen, we understand. We got EMS coming. I get it. Just give us a second. We have medics on scene.
So who is that? Where did he come from?
Where are they? How can I relax? You
This appears to be the immediate aftermath, or at least minutes after the shooting happened.
Might
and you
be
hear
popped
people
up.
who were eyewitnesses, people who were clearly nearby on the street coming out, having these interactions with those agents on scene. If Tom Winter's with us, Tom, I want to talk to you about this because I think what that video also nods to, and if Julia Ainsley is still with us too, number one, the way that these operations now have drawn a lot of eyeballs. People coming to observe, to watch, to obviously in some cases interact. There was an operation that was occurring from ICE before this shooting happened. That's obviously why this most recent operation, ICE was in the city of Minneapolis in the first place. And this is a city, Tom, that understands and has been the center of a national political flashpoint before.
That's exactly right, Hallie. Let's tackle the first thing first, which is the idea of operations, law enforcement operations being watched real time by people in cities. I mean, that's so incredibly rare. I'm not talking about traffic stops. I'm not talking about when something happens, there's an investigation, an incident. But typically law enforcement operations happen early in the morning when a search warrant or an arrest warrant is carried out. And then there's an element of surprise. It's not something where it's kind of telegraphed, hey, we are going to your town to look for X crime. In this case, immigration-related crimes. So that's something that's so unusual. And it's so unusual that people would be following around ICE and saying this is where they are, or what are they doing, and have the opportunity to intercede, have the opportunity to protest, or may actually inject themselves in this law enforcement operation, all of which or none of which may have happened here. And so that makes this very unusual, makes it very difficult for police officers. Looking at the car there with a round through the front, going right into the driver's seat.
That's one from the side with the windows down.
During this show.
That's
and
what
so,
saved them.
that makes it a big challenge, right? That's number one. Number two, this happened in Minneapolis. So in Minneapolis, we know about the George Floyd killing. We know about the protest that followed that, became a nationwide protest in the summer of 2020, and what that sparked. And the chief there, Brian O'Hara, who I think at this point, in his eyes, is probably had to speak to the nation too many times because of some active shooting incident in a local school and a church going back to this summer in August, and then a number of high-profile incidents in and around the Minneapolis area. Now they're going to have to deal with, and we saw a video at the top of the show of snowballs and ice being, and our reporter from CARE referring to that earlier in the program, talking about how people are already responding to this. And I think that's got a lot of people concerned. That's obviously got the governor of Minnesota concerned, who's talking about putting the National Guard kind of on notice that they might get called in if there are any sort of protests or anything that happens as a result of this. And the other challenge is, ICE, local police, sometimes people don't draw the difference. You have a federal law enforcement agency carrying out, you're looking at the video I was referring to earlier, the snowballs, those being thrown at local police officers. There's still an investigation. Granted, they've cleared that crime scene, but this is going to be a real potentially contentious weekend in Minneapolis. You've got politicians that are making their statements about what they believe about ICE and whether or not ICE should be in that community in very strong terms. And we know that political rhetoric, no matter which direction it comes from, speaks to people, and sometimes it speaks to people that then want to go out and take matters into their own hands. So, look, this has become a very difficult event. It comes on the heels of a lot of rhetoric.
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm probably gonna end it here. They know what they're doing. Your job that you depend on now, it's not really paying you like they used to. Your food costs more. Your gas costs more. Your bills cost more. You got kids. Woo! You got several kids. Wife. Some angry people out here. You got some who figuring it out. Don't get me wrong. Because I'm one of the ones figuring it out. Now I'm going to help you figure it out. We ain't finna crash out. But you got a lot of crash outs. A lot of crash outs. Ready to crash out. Want to crash out. And this their way. So we're going to sit back and watch. I ain't got my soundboard right now. I will do the claps. We're going to sit back and watch. And I'm going to run up the numbers. Let's go.
in this country, and it's something that police officers are concerned about. We did a story just in the last month or two on NBCNews.com about that concern from law enforcement, and as a matter of fact, spoke to the former St. Paul police chief, specifically about this. So this is a challenging, it's going to be a challenging couple of days. Hopefully things don't escalate further than they have been, Hallie.
Tom, I'll ask you to stand by along with the rest of our team because I want to bring in somebody who is an eyewitness to this. And Julia Ainsley asking you to stand by too. Emily Heller, who watched this happen in Minneapolis. She's joining us now on the phone. Emily, it's Hallie. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for being with us. Can you tell us, first of all, where you were and what you saw?
Is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life. TV. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back.
Here's the craziest stuff.
Let me be clear. Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident. But we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this. I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this. Please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans.
Yeah, but they're not supposed to be here. Because if she was supposed to be here, she wouldn't have ran. Just keep it 100. Just keep it 100, Sean. I mean, I'm not saying she should have got shot, but she's running because she knows she's not supposed to be here. If not, just stop. Talk to him. Show him his stuff. I didn't even blow it up. My bad. Put stuff in my face.
Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Bob Jacobson of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, my name is Bob Jacobson. It is my honor to serve as the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. First of all, I want to acknowledge the reason that we are all here.
Well, we know.
The loss of life is not anything anyone would ever want. We fully expect that the community will want to peacefully demonstrate their anger or frustration. Minnesota residents and visitors have the right to peacefully demonstrate. We recognize that demonstrations are often driven by strong emotions, beliefs, and certainly a desire to be heard. Our role is to help ensure everyone can express themselves without anyone getting hurt. The Minnesota Department of Public Safety's role through the Minnesota State Patrol is to ensure safety, protect constitutional rights, keep roads accessible, and above all, to prevent harm. Our top priority is public safety. Our focus is keeping demonstrators, community members, drivers, and law enforcement safe, especially during moments of heightened tension or uncertainty.
from the
Demonstrations must remain safe and lawful, particularly around roadways. We will join with our partners to support safety while respecting the right
Tell them what
to
a protest
protest.
at on the roadway.
With that in mind, I'd like to share a few safe and lawful ways to demonstrate. Minnesotans can safely and legally express their views in many ways, including getting together peacefully with others in public spaces, marching or walking, not on roadways, making your voice heard through chants, speeches, and displaying signs, being present in public areas where pedestrians are allowed, gathering in designated or permitted areas, and these actions will allow people to express themselves while protecting the safety of everyone involved.
They know it's about to go down.
Unsafe
Look
or
at 'em
illegal
back there.
actions could result in fines or arrests. Certain behaviors create serious hazards that threaten public safety,
Bald heads.
disrupt emergency services, or put people at risk. These actions could result in fines or arrest. Demonstrating on or entering a freeway on foot, walking on highways, throwing objects, starting or setting fires, damaging property or graffiti, using illegal fireworks, displaying or using illegal weapons,
Telling them what they
reckless
can
or
use and not
dangerous
use.
driving, especially near
Instead of talking
pedestrians, and certainly assaultive, aggressive, or riotous behavior toward anyone. We all want definitive answers to what happened today. Our Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is working in conjunction with the FBI to investigate this morning's shooting. As you know, we don't comment on active investigations, but also keep in mind that this is an investigation is also in its infancy. So any speculation about what had happened would be just that. And we will not engage in speculation. With that, I will turn it back over to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'd be glad to take any questions. Yeah, and I can let General Schaefer talk about this. It so happens it's a training weekend. We've got about 7,500 troops in training at our sites, training sites across the state. What it is, and in the National Guard, you give a warning order, which is a heads up of something could be coming. That just allows people to think about what they would need, what it would mean to mobilize, what it would mean to put them in. And I could let the general talk a little bit about this. Obviously, since the summer of 2020, we had a lot of work done on teams being ready to make sure that civil unrest. And what that means, and I think Commissioner Jacobson was very clear, and I want Minnesotans to hear this from me, the desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time, but it needs to be done safely. And I think the commissioner simply just laid out some of those parameters. We can do that. This is the peaceful resistance that we need. Simon, you want to say a few things about what that means to have them on the ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. So for the military, Minnesota National Guard is comprised of 13,000 soldiers and airmen. We live all across and work throughout Minnesota. A warning order is just an initial step to increase your preparations. The Minnesota Guard is always prepared to respond and support state agencies and the citizens of Minnesota. So what that means for us today is just some additional checks on equipment that is ready at all times. And maybe some additional phone calls to service members who might be activated, but no activations. We are embedded with our state agencies here at the Operations Center to just continue parallel planning in the event that we are needed to support.
Thanks, John. And I would make note, Mary, and to Minnesotans on this about the National Guard, they're there to protect you and protect your constitutional rights. These are our neighbors. They don't wear masks. They don't bust in from somewhere else. They're not here to cause hassles to you or what we saw today, the tragedy. Having them at the ready to make sure, because when we see these types of things happen, and we saw it after the murder of George Floyd, there's folks that want to cause chaos. There's the disruptors in it. And while the vast majority of those protests were peaceful expressions of their First Amendment rights, there were those that destroyed property and put people at risk. The National Guard is there to make sure that peaceful protests are able to be done and that those that want to do the destruction are stopped from doing that. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, and I think apparently by a federal agent, not by Minnesotans who were there to express their First Amendment rights. I think we've seen this to have folks ready. The gatherings that were down there today, I think this shocked everyone. People showed up as they should. There's people putting flowers down on a memorial. There's people expressing their anger. It's just as these situations develop, we decide when we need to move these people out. And I think the local reporters know well on this, both unfortunately and for us, the upside of this is that we're very good and we've had practice at this. And I just want to, again, implore Minnesotans, I am not telling you not to express your anger or your frustrations or the outrage that we have. Look, this was totally predictable, as I said it yesterday, and it was totally...
So they tried to split it. I didn't know what happened. They're splitting it. And they hadn't realized that it's not split. But someone's going to tell them. Because remember, this is live.
I am not telling you not to express your anger or your frustrations or the outrage that we have. Look, this was totally predictable, as I said it yesterday, and it was totally avoidable. And I just want to remind you, too, that local law enforcement, we get no coordination. They don't tell us they're coming. They don't say why they're sending the largest deployment in American history to Minneapolis. They're not making us any safer. We don't have any of that coordination. They should be talking to us when we do these things. Let us know. We're going to be down here. This is going to happen. We don't have that. So when you see local law enforcement or state patrol, or if it would take the National Guard, we're there responding to the chaos they've created too. But our role is to make sure that we're protecting Minnesotans so that something like this doesn't happen. I have not. The question was, have I spoken to the individual's family? No, we do not have a definitive ID on this individual. I'm going to note to all of you, I think it's really important, and the professionals do this, and they train me to do this. This is an open investigation. You need to be very careful about it. I know that many of you, myself included, have seen a very difficult video to watch, one where there's a family member watched their family member be shot and killed in front of them. It's beyond me that apparently from the federal government, from the Homeland Security Director herself, has already determined who this person was, what their motive was, and they hadn't even been taken out of the vehicle. We're not living in a normal world. And so, no, I have not. And I want to be very careful because I know how painful this is. I know how painful it is right now. I'm saying person and all that. This is a human being. This very well is an individual's child, a parent, and we don't know that yet. So, no, I have not. But once we do, we will. So, yes. Colonel, would you like to do that? Colonel?
So the governor was mentioning mobilizing more of the state patrol. How many state patrol people are on the ground in Minneapolis right now? And should there have been more state patrol people on the ground like a couple weeks ago when I was down?
So the question was, how many state patrol troopers have been deployed to the city of Minneapolis? Right now, we don't talk typical numbers because that is considered security information. We do have a specialized team that does deal with crowd control, and so they have been deployed. But again, they are from all over the state of Minnesota, so they will come in tiers to the state.
And they had already been on the ground to some extent before today?
No, it was in response to this event.
I'm sorry. What was it?
I ain't got no mics in there. Like, what's going on?
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government.
You hear that?
I think in this case, the National Guard is their main mission. They have a dual mission. There's the federal mission when they're under Title 10 orders, and then they're under Title 32 orders. And this warning order, there's nothing officially been done yet. If I am to activate them as the Commander-in-Chief of the Minnesota National Guard, I will issue the executive order to the Minnesota National Guard, and then they will be put in state duty status. And as you've seen over the last few years, that could be flood prevention. That could be after a wind blowing storm up in the north, up in Bemidji, or it could be COVID or George Floyd response. In this case, again, it doesn't necessarily change the mission. They're there to protect Minnesotans. They're there to serve Minnesotans. I think the thing that is so challenging in the moment we're in is we don't see a desire to work with us on public safety. We hear a demonization of our state. We see people coming in who don't know our community. And we see this massive display for the TVs that we're trying to understand how is this coordinated. And some of you watch the videos on there, total chaos. And look, I have very limited work in this is the training in the National Guard, but I've had a lot of training now to watch how our professionals operate. After this person was shot, federal agents milling around, touching the vehicle at a crime scene and things, I don't know what to tell you, and I don't quite know how to respond to the question other than my primary responsibility as governor is the protection of the people of Minnesota, and you can be assured whether it's the State Patrol or whether it's the National Guard, their deployment is there to protect Minnesotans from whatever it is. If it's an act of nature, if it's a global pandemic, or in this case, if it is a rogue federal agent. I don't know at this time, and I want to be very careful. It's unprecedented that we have the federal government's already determined exactly what's happened here and the motives of an individual that we don't even know the name. They don't know the name, and that's very difficult. So, well, one more, Dana.
They radical left.
Look, and I understand the uniqueness of this moment in this week, following this week, seeing what's happening in the backdrop of a show hearing in D.C. My job is to govern, and my job is to see what the facts are.
My job. You got fraud.
This happened a couple of hours ago, and we're already pitting American against American. All of you saw a video in your eyes. We have a chaotic situation caused by the largest deployment in American history of federal agents into a community with no communication to locals. We had a chaotic situation where an individual is in their car shot and killed. And so, look, I want to be very cautious here because Donald Trump will make this about me. He will make this about politics. This is about public safety, and this is about normalcy. To Americans who are watching this, if you're in Portland or you're in LA or you're in Chicago or you're wherever they're coming next, stand with us.
But if they
stand with us against this.
What they gonna do?
This was so preventable, so unnecessary, and I don't know. I hope. Maybe we're at the McCarthy moment. Do you have no decency? Do you have no decency? We have someone dead in their car for no reason whatsoever, and
trying to run over an agent.
And I don't want to be right about this, but I said if they do this, they're going to create a chaotic situation where someone innocent's going to get killed, and they did it. And now we hear more political rhetoric. Enough is enough. And so to Minnesotans, don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act. Do not allow them to declare martial law. Do not allow them to lie about the security and the decency of this state. And let's let this investigation play itself out. Let's make sure we protect our neighbors. I encourage you to use your First Amendment rights and all of your constitutional rights, but do so in a peaceful manner. We'll gather back with you as soon as we gather more information that needs to be put out. But again, stay safe, Minnesotans, and we'll be back with you.
Stay safe, Minnesota.
Thank you, Bob.
Listening in on Governor Tim Walz talking about the shooting today at Portland and 31st, where a 37-year-old woman was shot and killed by an ICE agent. A somber tone that he took sending the message that he believes this was all preventable, and he's upset that ICE was even in Minneapolis. We're going to hear a lot of that kind of rhetoric coming out in the next few days. But Danny, a decidedly somber governor, unlike the mayor of Minneapolis, who was fiery and using profane language. The governor decided to take a totally different tone.
I thought the tone was different, but the message was very much the same. And I thought the message was similar to, as he mentioned, what he was talking about yesterday in his press conference, where again, he's positioning Minnesota as almost sort of a safe zone against the federal government, which he has called hostile, in words such as that. And so yes, his tone was very much, talking about letting the facts play out, but was not a surprise in terms of his view towards the federal government's act.
And a couple pieces of news that we did learn: the State Patrol mobile unit has been activated. They're coming in from around the state just to make sure things stay safe. The National Guard is on standby, preparing if necessary. Of course, the governor saying, please go and exercise your First Amendment.
You have been
rights.
listening to KR station there in Minneapolis. We were looking at that feed for that news conference. Governor Tim Walz there, clearly angry as he was laying out his immense frustration, blasting the Trump administration. He said, you heard him at the end there saying, have you no decency, essentially, saying that a woman has now been shot and killed, in his view, for no reason. Remember, the Trump administration has suggested it was self-defense on the part of those ICE officers.
Hey, she tried to run them over.
Hello and welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Ryan Nobles in Washington as we continue to follow the breaking news out of Minneapolis, where demonstrators are gathering, an FBI investigation is underway, and local officials are livid after a woman was shot and killed by an ICE officer in her car during an immigration operation earlier today. The accounts of the officer-involved shooting coming from federal and local officials are wildly different. The Homeland Security Secretary is alleging the woman who was killed was carrying out an act of domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
Minnesota's governor calling that description, quote, propaganda. NBC News has obtained video from multiple angles of the incident recorded by witnesses as ICE was carrying out what DHS described as an enforcement operation. Now, we do want to warn you that the video you're about to see is disturbing.
Oh, okay. Oh my 2-3 times.
God! What the?
Oh, it did hit the tree and hit the pole.
What the did you do?
Now, as we show you this video again, slowed down, authorities say the woman shot and killed was 37 years old and was not a target of the ICE operation. In a statement, DHS said, quote, an ICE officer fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. Thankfully, the ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. That is a statement from DHS. And here's Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem addressing the incident.
Homeland Security.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased.
Now, some eyewitness accounts and the video you just watched dispute that characterization of what happened, with members of the community calling for ICE to leave the city during protests near the scene of the shooting, and the city's mayor sending this message to federal agents.
Not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets. And in this case, quite literally killing people. So they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is to ICE. Get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite.
Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz announcing minutes ago that he was issuing a warning order to prepare the National Guard while pushing back against the administration's deployment of federal agents.
We've been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait.
Now, today's shooting comes in the midst of an escalating feud between state and local officials and the federal government, not just over an intensifying immigration crackdown, but also over allegations of fraud involving some Somali residents. Joining me now is NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, NBC News White House reporter Monica Alba, and Jim Kavanaugh, a retired ATF special agent in charge and now an NBC News law enforcement analyst. So, Julia, let's start with you. What do we know exactly about what happened in Minneapolis today?
Well, two competing narratives, as you just laid out, Ryan. What we heard from Secretary Kristi Noem was that this was an incident of domestic terrorism in which a woman tried to ram her video into ICE officers as they dug their car out of the snow. The video does not show that. In fact, this woman is in her car in the middle of the road, could be blocking them from getting to where they need to go when she is approached by the ICE officers. Now, I've spoken to some senior DHS officials who say that the way the officers approach the car is not according to their training, that they are not.
Like, all this to show you they do not have the same respect for us, melanated people, as they do for everyone else. Anyone else, you're way more privileged, way more respect on their name.
Ever supposed to go to the front of the car. They would always want to approach at a 90-degree angle. So that's the first thing I'm learning that seems out of character, at least with what they are trained to do. Also, what we heard then from eyewitnesses was that they believed that this woman was trying to leave. Now, the angle of the video, it's hard to determine if the officer who fired the shots from the front of the vehicle could see or would at least assume that she was trying to turn her wheel and go in the other direction, or whether she was trying to move toward him. This is the kind of thing, typically, Ryan, you would find out these details during the course of an ongoing investigation. But instead today, both sides very quick to give their version, their account of exactly how this went down. The question remains here, was this woman attempting to leave a situation she found herself in, or was she, as the Department of Homeland Security is laying out, using her vehicle as a weapon to intentionally hurt that ICE officer? Of course, Minnesota and Minneapolis leaders pushing back fiercely, saying she was not and that she was an innocent person. One thing's clear, this is the new flashpoint of immigration here.
Okay, Julia, stand by. Thank you for that. Jim and Monica, you stand by as well. But we're going to dip in and listen to Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota, who is talking right now about this incident.
To so randomly and senselessly lose somebody that they love while they're sitting in their car. It's just unbelievable. And it shows how ICE is making my city so much less safe.
What specifically in the video makes you mistrust what the administration has said? What from what you've seen gives you that impression?
Well, I start from the fundamental position that when you have an event like this, you have a killing like this, there is an investigation. You bring in people who know how to do investigations to understand exactly what happened. And yet the President of the United States and the Secretary have been just pronouncing what they think happened. I mean, I can see with my own eyes what millions of people have now seen in this video, and it is certainly hard to see how in this video you see any evidence that this woman rammed ICE agents who are trying to dig their car out of a snowbank. This is, again, why it's so important that we have a thorough investigation, because we're going to want justice here.
What have you learned from your conversations with DHS?
Well, so I called, my office reached out to DHS as soon as this event happened, urging them to get ICE away from this scene. The presence of ICE at the scene of this killing was provocative. It was fueling people's rage and anger and grief, and so that was my first call. My second outreach to them has been to try to understand how I can kind of bring together what the secretary said about what she has apparently concluded happened with the video that millions of Americans are looking at. And I've asked to see, like, what is your, what do you have that would suggest that your story is accurate? I mean, I think honestly, what's going on here is just flat out gaslighting on the part of the administration and the secretary without really any due diligence or respect for the tragedy that's happened here.
Is there anything Congress, specifically Democrats, can do, whether it's through the appropriations process or something else, to hold ICE accountable for this?
Well, the department has sent over 2,000 ICE agents to Minnesota. I don't understand what their legal authority is for doing that. They have had absolutely no consultation with local law enforcement or state law enforcement, as the governor just said in his remarks. And so I think as a member of the Democratic minority in Congress, I'm doing everything that I can to try to get this administration to follow the law. But I sure wish that we had some support on the other side of the aisle for that.
Are you concerned now with the situation on the ground in Minnesota? Do you think tensions?
Well, I mean, of course I am. I know that. I know this. I know my city really well, and I know how angry people are and how hurt people are, and I know how scared they are because the presence of these ICE agents on the street has been terrifying to people. And I firmly support people's rights to exercise their free speech rights and to demonstrate and to protest. And it's also really, really important that we keep everybody safe. And so I second the comments and the statements of the governor and the mayor as they have said that it is extremely important that people's demonstrations remain peaceful and that we keep everybody safe. And I respect that they're both doing everything that they can to make that be the case as people express their fury and their grief over what's happened in Minneapolis.
Why do you think the Trump administration is so fixated on Minnesota right now?
Well, I wish I knew. I mean, I wish they would just leave us the fuck alone. I mean, seriously.
Leave us the F alone.
What is when do things stop being about politics?
Stop being about politics.
And start being about actual human decency. And so, I mean, I'm sure we can all hypothesize on what all of their political reasons are. But meanwhile, a woman died being shot in her car. And everything that they're doing is making it worse and not better. Thank you all.
Thanks. That's
it.
Senator Tina Smith. That was Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota. She was talking live on Capitol Hill. Her initial response to this situation in her home state where a 37-year-old woman was shot and killed during an engagement with ICE officers in Minneapolis. There has been a very different opinion as to how that situation played itself out, and now we're starting to see protests begin to crop up in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota as a result. I want to bring back in our panel of experts.